As one of my neighbors said, we buried the victims and the rest of us are survivors. And that simple mind shift is part of building resilience right there.
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. The most impactful moments in life are often, unfortunately, inspired by tragic events. Today, we're speaking with Sandra Younger, who lost her home, 12 neighbors, and almost her own life in the 2003 Cedar Fire, one of the biggest wildfires in modern California history. It burned over 273,000 acres of land, 2,500 homes, and killed 17 people in San Diego County. We'll learn about her experience as well as her book, The Fire Outside My Window, and how this experience taught her resilience that she now spreads throughout the world as an international speaker and certified professional coach.
Sandra, welcome to Be Bold Branding.
Thank you so much. This is so much fun and such a privilege to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you, and we love incredible stories. So you want to start and just sort of tell us your experience and then how that led you to what you're doing now.
Well, the experience really started about 20 years ago. My husband and I had recently become empty nesters, so we didn't have to worry about what school district we lived in. And we thought, let's just move out to the country. Let's get out of the suburbs. And we found this beautiful house on the side of a mountain in an amazing place called Wildcat Canyon. And this is all about 30 minutes east of the city of San Diego. So we were able to buy this house and we couldn't believe our good fortune. We loved it. We loved seeing all the wildlife around us and snakes even. But one day on my way to work, this bobcat just jumped out in front of my car and went running off down the road. And I thought, a real wildcat in Wildcat Canyon. How could this be any better? This is so amazing. So about 7 months later, 7 short months after we moved into our new nirvana, we woke up to the sight of fire outside our windows. Fire on the other side of the canyon, on the mountains over there, and fire closing in on us. So we knew we should have already been gone. We grabbed our pets. We had 2 big shaggy Newfoundland dogs, and we had this brainless cockatiel named Chelsea. And I do apologize to bird lovers, but here's why I call her brainless, because I took care of her. I fed her, and she only loved Bob, my husband.
I call that brainless.
Chelsea bird, and she would come flying to him. So we saved her. We grabbed a few photographs. We jumped in the closest car, which happened to be my little Acura coupe, because we could not find the keys to Bob's big Suburban. That would have made more sense. But so there's one lesson already. So we start out, and I'm driving. As I'm backing out of our driveway, we could see that the fire was right there on the other side of our house. It was as if it were daylight. And remember, this was the middle of the night. So we started out, there was only one way out, and it was down this little sliver of asphalt, very steep grade. And just as we got to that most treacherous part of the road, we hit the smoke. And I couldn't see anything. And I started screaming, Bob, I can't find the road. I can't find anything. And Bob yells back, well, just don't wreck the car. Which, of course, meant do not drive off the side of this mountain, right? Mm-hmm. So at that moment, here comes the magic. A bobcat leaped out of the brush on the side of our little neighborhood road, right to my headlight. And something in me knew that the cat was on the road I could not see in the smoke, and something in me knew to follow it. So I followed the bobcat, and when I got to the place where it disappeared in the smoke, now I could see something. I could see these 2 smeary fields of red below us and a dark place in the middle that I knew had to be the road. So I steered for that dark place. Now, y'all live in the South, so you will understand this. When you are in a pickle and you have to steer yourself into the darkness to get out, and the darkness itself turns out to be your salvation, that is a sermon waiting to be preached right there.
You bet it is.
Yeah.
So we negotiated our way through this fire on both sides of us for about a mile, and then we broke out into clear night. And so that is how Bob and I and our 2 shaggy Newfoundlands and Chelsea the brainless cockatiel escaped the Cedar Fire, which, as you said, is still one of the biggest. I think now it's the 9th largest fire in California's modern history. For 14 years, it was the largest by a big margin. And since then, other incidents have caught up to it. But that was the original story that led to everything else.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yes, and when you were faced with that moment of, oh my gosh, we have to leave right now, what was the first thought that went through your head besides your animals, and just what was the first, like, maybe material things you thought, I need to take with me?
I was looking for shoes. I couldn't find my shoes. But as for material things, I wasn't thinking about that so much as I was, are we even going to be able to get out? Because we're on this little neighborhood road that leads to the main road, Wildcat Canyon Road, the only way in or out. And I yelled to Bob, what if we can't get to Wildcat Canyon Road? And he said, we'll get there. And at that moment, I stopped thinking. There's this switch that flips, and other people I've taught to have been in these life or death situations corroborate this, that you shift into survival mode and you're not thinking, you're just doing. There is no middle step. You're just doing one thing after another to escape. So I did grab a few photographs off the walls and my dresser and threw them in a laundry basket because that's all I could find. I got my dogs. I yelled at Bob to get the bird. We jumped in the car, and we weren't really thinking about anything except we got to get out. We got to get out.
And what were the next steps, Sandra? Like, where did you go from there?
Well, we had all these animals, and we went to a pretty modest motel that we knew about that we thought took dogs, and they wouldn't take us, but they sent us downtown. And the immediate place we went was west, away from the fire. The fire was coming at us from the east. And so, the initial thought was, we just got to drive west. We got to get away. And then we could think about, where are we going to stay now? So we ended up at this hotel, this cute little boutique hotel in downtown San Diego, that was owned by animal lovers. And they had dedicated the whole 3rd floor to people traveling with pets. So we were the first ones to check in. It was like 4:00 in the morning. And then gradually, as people were running from this fire, it was just taking such a wide swath of the county that there were just mass evacuations going on everywhere. So that floor filled up. And by the next morning, there were barks and squawks and it was a zoo up there, but they took us in very kindly. And then a friend of ours we actually knew through our dogs happened to have a rental house available, and he offered it to us because he said, I don't know who's going to take you with these 2 giant dogs. So that's how we landed. That's where we lived back in the suburbs. We had tried to leave. Well, we rebuilt our house, and we did rebuild our house.
Oh, that was the next question. Oh, wow. Did you build it a lot differently?
No, we didn't. We
Okay.
loved the house as we found it, but of
That's
course
good.
we put our own spin on it. We picked our own colors and flooring and that sort of thing. We did change the kitchen to make it just more of an entertaining space. That was the biggest change we made. But we wanted to recreate the house that we'd found.
Mm-hmm. Well, before we get into how this parlays into your coaching, tell us, what would you have done differently now looking back if you had to face a similar situation?
Well, I wouldn't have been asleep, I'll tell you that. There were lots of clues that it was a high fire day. The National Weather Service had labeled it a red flag day, which means very high fire risk. All of the fire agencies were geared up. They were all watching it. We were pretty oblivious. We were brand new to fire country. We thought we were prepared. We had cleared space around our house, and we had bought the house knowing that it had the right kind of roof, you don't want a cedar shake roof in fire country. We had cement tile roof and all of this, and we were still naive. So we knew there was a fire around 1 o'clock in the morning, and we called the closest fire department, and they said, "Oh yeah, it's a long way away. It's not burning towards you." And we believed them, and we went back to sleep. Mm-hmm. And we should not have. We should have been on alert that day. So that's the main thing I would do differently. And I would have, as now I have, and I teach other people about, I would have a go bag. You need, wherever you live, you all get hurricanes and tornadoes. I have a friend in Atlanta who will text me and say, "I got my spaghetti pot out in case I need it because there's another tornado watch," right? So everybody should have a go bag. You should have just the basic necessities that you need.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. Ready to go. So yes, I would be a lot more prepared. And now that's actually one of my speaking topics, how not to be a fire victim. Be prepared. Here's what you need to know. Here's how you need to harden your house and be ready yourself. There's a lot we could have done.
Yeah. And you talk a lot about resilience. And so I want to shift this now to the coaching. And I'd asked you before we began this, did your coaching actually start as a result of all of this? And I'd love for you to tell that story.
It was a result several steps down the line. At the time, I was a journalist. I was a magazine editor. Both of my degrees are in journalism. And so I realized pretty soon after we got out of this inferno that I had to tell this story, that was mine to do. I felt like, remember that scene in the Blues Brothers movie where John Belushi says, "We're on a mission from God." And I felt that way. I felt like this is clearly my mission. I just came out of the worst part of the worst fire anyone could remember. 12 people who lived within a mile or two of me had died in the fire doing the same things we were doing at the same time. And it was a true blue miracle that we made it out. That Bobcat, what was that? So, so I knew that I really needed to tell the story and that I could write a book. And I started researching my book. It took me, if I had known that the book was not going to come out until the 10-year anniversary of the fire, I probably wouldn't have done it. But thank goodness I didn't know that. So I went on and I did over 100 interviews. I did a lot of, regular book research to find out everything about this fire, and put it all together into a book called The Fire Outside My Window. Once the book came out, suddenly I had a platform as a speaker. So that's a great thing. I know you all probably teach this. Have a book, because that gives you a platform, right? And it gives you a way to tell your story in your own words too. So I started speaking. Mainly the firefighters found me. I hoped that Oprah would find me, but it was the firefighters who found me. And they invited me to come speak at their conferences and emergency management conferences all over the place in Canada and Salt Lake. And I was very popular on what I call the tundra up there in North Dakota, in Minnesota, and places like that. So then people started directing friends to me. Would you talk with my friend whose house just burned in another fire? firefighters would come up to me and they would resonate with the resilience message. I teach people how to build our resilience like a muscle. And I was having a lot of these conversations and I thought, I better learn how to do this the right way. So I did go to coaching school. It was a very rigorous 10-month program, and you come out of it with a certified professional coaching certificate. And I'm now on my way to getting the International Coaching Federation credential, which is a gold standard in the coaching profession. So that is how that all unfolded. It was just one natural step after another.
So tell me a little bit about the coaching. Like, who do you coach? Who are you best suited to serve, Sandra?
The training that I have equips me to serve any population, really. I like to work with emergency responders because these people, we owe them so much. When I was running from that fire, the firefighters were running into the fire, right? Trying to warn people. They realized early on they couldn't put it out. It was a 40-mile flame front. Did big 100-foot walls of flames, and there are not enough resources in all of firefighting to put out something like that, although they did a great job and they caught it in the end. So these people have so much trauma that they're carrying that I like to talk with them and encourage them. I'm not equipped as a coach to treat PTSD. That's for therapists, but there is a lot we can do to help people or support people in this creative partnership that is coaching, to realize their potential, to get clear on their goals. A lot of things you all do, I'm sure, and to sort of chart a path from where they are now to where they want to be. That's what coaching is best at.
Yes, absolutely. So how long have you been coaching now in that space, Sandra?
I've been coaching for 2 years. And as I say, I'm working towards the credential now so that I will be even better equipped to grow this coaching practice.
Well, as I started the episode, we talked about it. Unfortunately, and fortunately at the same time, a lot of businesses start because of tragedies like this. But what was the most eye-opening thing for you throughout this experience?
That is how I discovered the resilience piece. Because when I started doing my interviews for the book, and I was interviewing, I still think it's the only book. It's the only book I know of that tells both sides of the story, the firefighters and the law enforcement people and the public. So as I was interviewing all these people, most of the people who lost their homes were looking forward. They did not feel that they were victims. And that's what happens after one of these events is everybody suddenly calls you a victim, which I reacted to because I didn't think I was a victim. As one of my neighbors said, we buried the victims and the rest of us are survivors. And that simple mind shift is part of building resilience right there. But I realized that not everybody felt that way. I encountered people who did consider themselves victims. They were almost proud to declare themselves victims of the Cedar Fire. And what really struck me, to get to the point of your question, is that it did not matter how much or how little they had lost in the fire. Some of the people who had lost the least, like a detached building, were the most bitter. And I talked with 2 families that, oh my gosh, they had each lost 3 family members. Can you even imagine?
No.
It took me 3 years to even get the courage to approach these people. I was so humbled to even talk with them. And they were not the bitter ones. They said our loved ones wouldn't want us to live the rest of our lives in bitterness and anger and sadness. They would want us to go on and celebrate life in their honor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized that there was an element of choice involved. You can be a victim if you want to be, or you can be a survivor. And the survivors had this funny way of becoming thrivers because they weren't burdened down by what I think of the quicksand of blame and anger and resentment, bitterness. The survivors, most of them turned into thrivers, and some of us turned into givers, which is what I try to do now. Is you mentioned earlier that a lot of coaches get into the share that with other people. Some survivors even become world changers. When you think about the people we most admire, you think of the Dalai Lama, you think of Malala, you think of, Desmond Tutu, and
Gandhi. And yes.
Yeah, Gandhi. They've all been through incredible hardships. And that is why we admire them, because they didn't lie down in the fetal position and call themselves victims for the rest of their lives. They got up and they looked at the opportunities that they had now instead of what they lost.
Yeah.
So poignant.
For me, it's a choice.
Yeah, what a powerful platform too, to be able to approach your coaching in that direction, because then you're a light to affect change for people like that. It's a vantage point, and I don't think any human is immune to it. Everybody's fighting a hard battle or has been through a hard battle, and we don't know individually what each of those battles are. But we all, like you said, have that opportunity to turn that to the positive and realize that things happen for us, not to us.
Yes.
And as a coach that's teaching that, there's no shortage of clientele, I would say, that you can affect with that message.
And that's why I don't want to limit myself to an audience.
Like what you're hearing? Hit that subscribe button and learn how you can change how you're seen and charge what you're worth.
As I started researching this, I thought, well, first I want to say I came across this great quote by Viktor Frankl. Have you all heard about Viktor Frankl?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So you know about him. And he was caught up in the Holocaust and lost his whole family. He was an Austrian psychiatrist, and he survived barely and came out and wrote this amazing book that's like this thick. I just have to recommend it to everyone, called Man's Search for Meaning. And one of the quotes I randomly came across was the last of the human freedoms, the freedom to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance, to choose one's own way, that this is our choice. And I thought, well, I can't compare, myself to Viktor Frankl in any way. But because I felt that, I resonated with that. I thought maybe there are common steps to come back from adversity, no matter what the adversity is. Mm-hmm. And I started looking, and lo and behold, I guess I was the last person to figure it out, but there is an entire body of psychology called positive psychology. And there's a subset of that called resilience. And even as far back as 2,000 years ago, some of the Stoic philosophers were talking about this. Like, it's not what happens to you, it's what you make of it. Carl Jung was talking about this decades ago. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of, I was 50 years old at the time. I was really late to this party, but I finally got it. And I looked at all this literature, and yes, there were ways that have been empirically documented to build our resilience. The idea that we could build resilience and it wasn't just a static, innate gift that we got with our basic DNA, that blew me away. Mm-hmm. But I boiled it all down because I'd heard that, we can't remember much more than 5 things. So I boiled it all down into this thing I call the comeback formula. People can download this as a gift on my website, but these are the 5 things that I found are resilience builders. Well, the first one is gratitude. So I call it the comeback formula. Come to a place of gratitude. Come to a place in your heart where you can find even one little tiny thing to be grateful for. In our case, it was easy. We were alive. Our animals were alive. Not everyone was that fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
If you can find one little thing in a world of hurt to be grateful for, it will protect you, sort of immunize you against sinking into that quicksand of bitterness and blame. And it will be the first step in recovery and growth. So gratitude is huge. There are hundreds of studies about this now. And then I go through BACK. So come back. B is to be patient. Deep wounds do not heal overnight, but they can, especially if you believe, which is also a B, believe that you are resilient and you can come back. Look at everything you've already come back from. Know that resilience is in your DNA. Resilience is the way of the universe. It's why spring comes no matter how much snow there is in Tahoe right now. Spring will come.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the B. Be patient, but believe you can come back. The A, this is a tough one. A is to accept help and ask for it when we need it.
Mm.
How many times do people offer us help and we say, oh no, we're good? Because we're the ones who like to be the helpers, right? We like to write the charity checks. We like to take stuff to the Goodwill. We don't want to be on the other end of that. It's embarrassing. It was embarrassing for me until a friend of mine took me aside. She happened to be a psychologist. And she said, Sandra, your job right now is to be a grateful recipient.
Oh,
love it.
Beautiful advice.
Love it.
Yeah. This is their way of working through the trauma. The whole community is traumatized when something like this happens. They want to help. So I took a lot of stuff from people, well-meaning people that I was never going to wear. One box of stuff, my friend said, don't worry, this is not junk. This is designer couture from the 80s, maybe. I mean, tracksuits with giant shoulder pads. They
love it.
They packers. I don't know.
Tell me back.
That's right.
I have to schlep it out to the curb and call Goodwill to come get it. But to be a grateful recipient, again, the gratitude piece. Okay, so where was I? Oh, accept help. Be tough enough to ask for it when you need it, right? I need help right now, whether I want to be in this position or not. Okay, so C, we've already talked about choose. Choose your attitude. Like Viktor Frankl said, I like to say, choose your story, right? What's your story? Is my story, oh, this terrible fire came and took everything I owned and the firefighters didn't come save my house? Or is my story, by grace, I came out of that fire intact, physically intact with my animals, and I have enough insurance and I'm going to turn this into a positive, right? So choose your story. And then the very last one is to keep moving forward. The K is keep moving forward, one step at a time. Celebrate every victory. You know, when the foundation was poured for our house, that was a victory. We didn't have a house yet, but hey, things are going up instead of coming down. So that's what I call the comeback formula. And it works not just for disaster survivors, but it works for everybody. It works for entrepreneurs, right?
Sure.
Everything is that kind of up and down. That's sort of the heartbeat of the cosmos, is that up and down. Successes, failures, get back up, start again. So that's what I learned about resilience. And that's what I teach people now as a speaker. And I do use that in my coaching as well.
Oh, what a lovely story.
Sandra, it's you definitely are a shining example of turning negativity into positivity, and then also using that platform to help so many other people. Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you if they would like for your coaching or speaking.
Right. I am available for either one. And my book just came out. Let me show you my book. My book just came out in an updated 20th anniversary edition.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's available on Amazon, and you can get in touch with me and get a free PDF of the Comeback Formula Guidebook at my website, which is just my name, sandrayounger.com, SandraYounger.com.
Sandra, thank you again so much for sharing your story with us and for being such a light to everybody who we hope never has to go through that situation or deal with any kind of trauma in their lives. But the resilience that it takes is the difference between the negative and the positive. So thank you, Sandra.
It is, and we all have that resilience in our DNA. Thank you. You all obviously have such big hearts for people, and I love what you're doing. And again, my privilege to be with you.
Ready to change how you're seen and charge what you're worth? If you're not getting enough opportunities to meet with ideal customers, or the prospects you're meeting with just aren't ideal, it's most likely your brand that's holding you back. So if you're a coach, consultant, or expert who is on the rise, you need our ultimate guide to a freedom-based brand. Download it free now at BrandFaceGuide.com.